Hi guys, welcome to this video and my channel. My name is Heather. I am the owner and creator here at Wicked Whiskey Designs. Today we are working on Geode Glitter Tumblers. Geode tumblers are one of my favorite tumblers to make. They are a great way to add a ton of color and a ton of excitement to a tumbler, and you can make these as simple or as colorful as you want. You can do a cup using only 2 or 3 glitter colors and it would be absolutely beautiful. Or you can be like me and literally use all the colors, all of them. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how to make these today. I'm going to link in the description box below all the products I'm using. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave me a comment and I will get right back with you. These are a lot of fun to make. At first, I used to think they were very intimidating, but I promise they are easy. And I'm going to share all of my tips and tricks with you so you can see exactly how easy they are. So please like and subscribe. I'm going to go ahead and go get started now. You always want to start with a fully sanded and prepped cup. So sand your tumbler down using a little sanding block. Wipe it down with a little bit of alcohol and then spray paint it white. Okay, so next comes the fun part. This is the glittering of the geode. I take Mod Podge and a paintbrush, and I go ahead and draw out the outer edge of where my geode is going to be. Keep in mind, if you're going to be adding a decal down the road, you want to leave space for that decal, whether it's horizontal or vertical. But draw the frame out of your geode on opposite sides and then glitter that. Once that is done, you'll go ahead and go back in, add the next layer of color. I will oftentimes skip the color directly next to the frame and move on to what I would call color number 3, so that you're not running into that frame color while it's still setting up. And then I will go ahead and skip pretty much every other color until we get to the middle and then go back in and fill in those colors that we've skipped, if that makes sense. If you're using very contrasting colors, like say black and white, you're going to really want to take your time. You're going to want to stop and give that Mod Podge time to set up, because if you don't, you're going to end up with just a dumpster fire. But if you're using colors that are very compatible, you can go ahead and move through this section pretty fast. It all kind of depends on the colors that you're using. Like I said, I will go ahead and do every other color. Make your geode designs interesting. Just don't go, up and down. Add little swirls and squiggles and things. It's what really will make it unique and bring a lot of life and a lot of interest to your tumbler. So, like I said, go through, finish out your colors, and then once you have ran them all through, go back and start adding in the colors that you haven't added yet. I normally save colors like black and white until the end, although you will see that I did add black pretty, about halfway through this. If you are adding really dark colors or chunky colors, you are going to end up laying down your color. You're going to pour your glitter on and you're going to get mad because it's going to look real sketchy and spotty. That's okay. It's just part of the fun. Go ahead and take your Mod Podge, dab a little bit on there extra. Even though it's still wet, just be real gentle about it, and then pour some more glitter on there until you're satisfied with the saturation. Once you complete that, move on to your next color. And you may find once this is all done and everything's set up and dried, you still have spots that are missing or didn't get as saturated as you would like. Not a problem. Just go back and repeat that step. Get a little bit of Mod Podge on your paintbrush and then just gently dab it on top of that area you want to add more glitter to, and then go ahead and pour a little bit more glitter on top and it should be fine. This is going to move a little bit once you get to the epoxy stage of things. So if you really wanted to lock everything in, once that geode design is cured or dried or however you want to put it, you could also do an entire layer of Mod Podge over the entire thing before it heads off to epoxy. That would help lock those colors and that glitter down even more than spray sealer. As you can see here, the next step is to spray seal it and then it gets sent over to epoxy. I made a mistake and did not actually video my first run of epoxy on this cup, but you can see where the glitter has moved around. If you do feel like it's moved too much, again, you would just go through with a little bit of Mod Podge and glitter, add a little bit extra, and then seal it, and then send it back again to be epoxied. You want to go ahead and blow your epoxy out with a torch to get rid of all those little micro bubbles, because that's a really very important part of this. Nobody likes micro bubbles. And then go ahead and let that run. You will go ahead and add 2 coats of epoxy before you add that base color. Sometimes 3, but normally 2 will do it. It doesn't need to be smooth. It just needs to be set. Next comes the base coat. I do mine in black. Now, black, you could hide a pterodactyl under black paint. I'm really convinced of this. It's very forgiving, unlike white, which is like the devil. So you want to do either gloss black spray paint and tape, or just hand paint it. Either way, you're going to be fine. I was feeling a little bit lazy and didn't feel like actually taping off the geode and spray painting it, so I just went ahead and hand painted it. Once that first layer of paint is dry, you'll go back in and add a second coat just to make sure everything is solid and saturated. This all depends on how much time you have. If you're trying to do it a little bit quicker, you can tape that geode off with painter's tape and then spray paint black and be done with it. I just kind of was feeling lazy at the point, so I just did it, by hand. Next, you're going to go ahead and send that back to be epoxied again. Once it's epoxied and the epoxy is cured, you're going to go ahead and decal it and line it. Go ahead and cut out your decal. You're going to go ahead and weed that and add that to your tumbler. You can obviously, add anything you want. And like I said earlier, you're going to keep in mind the placement of the decal you're going to be putting on the tumbler so that you are sure to leave enough negative space to where your decal will fit. I can't tell you how many times I have made that mistake. So like I said, you've got it weeded out. You're going to go ahead and line up your tumbler, and you are going to gently add that to your tumbler. Next, we're going to go ahead and sand the tumbler down. Be mindful of where that decal is. You obviously don't want to run your sanding block over the decal, but you want to go ahead and get rid of all the little bumps and whatnot. You're using chunky glitter, or even if you're not using chunky glitter, it's still going to need to be sanded down. 2 coats of epoxy just isn't going to cover it completely. You want to leave a little bit of rim area completely empty of paint, epoxy, glitter. For geodes, they're a little bit hearty, let's say. So I use an electric sander to get around that rim instead of killing my arm trying to use the sanding block. Next comes lining the geode. This is not a step you need to do. It's just something I like to do. I've seen some geode makers who do not do this, and their work is beautiful. This is just a step that I prefer to add to my tumblers. So I will grab a paint pen that matches what I'm doing. In this particular case, I'm using a gold one, and I literally just trace out the layers. I'm not really going to stress so hard. If I wiggle where I should waggle, if you will, I'm going to try to trace them as best as I can, but let's be honest, it's freaking glitter. So if you draw outside the lines a little bit, don't stress too hard on that. I am using a fine tip paint pen to do this. I've also used an extra fine paint pen on some of my tumblers. It all kind of depends on the look you're going for. This fine tip is obviously pretty bold and dramatic, but if you want something subtle, you would definitely go with an extra fine, as it's a smaller tip and it's not so in your face. Again, it's all personal preference on whether or not you want to do this step or not. Paint pens can be horribly temperamental, I will say that. And I do find that sanding your tumbler down gives that paint pen a little bit of traction, if you will, so it doesn't just skid across the epoxy. So I definitely recommend not skipping the step where you're sanding down your cup before adding the paint pen part of things. Now that that's done, you're going to go ahead and send your tumbler back for its final coats of epoxy. Sometimes I can get away with doing one more coat, but usually it does require two. It also depends on if you're using thin epoxy or if your epoxy is a little bit thicker. I like to add an additive to my final coats of epoxy. It's just a little shimmer so that that negative space sparkles. It's not holographic, it's not iridescent, it doesn't flash green against that black, it just shimmers perfect. And that's pretty much it. You just got done making your first Geode Glitter Tumbler. I hope you had fun with this video. I hope you learned something. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Have a great day.